Hey everybody, my name is Simon Williams and welcome back to another video from Northeast Christian Apologetics. Today we're going to be doing another Theology Thursday. And the topic of today's Theology Thursday is death, more specifically physical death. And I'll get into more detail on what I mean by that later. But the verse that we're going to be using in order to jump into this topic is 1 Thessalonians 4:13, which reads, "But we do not want you to be uninformed, brothers, about those who are asleep, that you may not grieve as others do who have no hope." Why are we talking about death when this verse explicitly says sleep? Simply because that's what seems to be indicated by the context of this verse. Don't forget that when we're doing these Theology Thursdays, you need to read these verses in the proper context. It also happens to be the case that Jesus and his disciples frequently referred to physical death as sleep. In previous videos, I have talked about how death is separation. And when the Bible talks about physical death in particular, it's referring to the separation of the soul from the body. And this kind of separation is represented in the Bible as one of the penalties of sin. You'll find people who argue that this is the most natural reading of verses like Genesis 2:17, Genesis 3:19, Numbers, 16:29, and 27:3. This idea of death being some kind of punishment is also represented in the prayers of Moses and Hezekiah. The same thing is true in the New Testament, although for Christians, death being a penalty is no longer applicable because Christians believe that Jesus has already taken the penalty for sin upon himself in the form of death. So you're going to find people out there who argue that death is meant to be understood in relation to the body as sleep, but also that death in relation to the soul is more of a gateway to allow the person to become united with the Lord. But you'll also find people who argue that when Jesus refers to sleep, or his apostles refer to death as sleep, that they're more spiritually minded than physically minded. So when Jesus refers to death as sleep, he's talking about the condition of the spirit, where the person's spirit is already united with God. And as we've discussed in previous videos, that separation from God is death. So if you're united spiritually with God, but are physically dead, then it's no different than sleep in that perspective. It should be noted that the definition that we provided earlier, that death is the separation of the soul with the body, doesn't seem to fully encompass all that death is. In order to really describe physical death in the way that we observe in this world, we need to add something like a cessation of all biological function, or a ceasing of all biological function, something along those lines. But following along those lines of thinking, it brings up an interesting question. Are humans created mortal or immortal? It appears that physical death is linked to the fall in some clear way. In Genesis 3:19, that verse doesn't seem to be indicating the condition of reality as it always has been. But it seems to be saying that this is a new feature of the world. Not only that, but Paul's theme in 1 Corinthians 15 seems to indicate that physical death had been defeated by Christ's resurrection. If in the end of all things, God is going to restore all things, and in the end, humans are intended to be immortal, then it seems to be the case that immortality was an initial feature of reality. So, what do you think about physical death when it's being referred to as sleep? Have you thought about this a lot? I know that I've been mentioning it in a lot of videos throughout the past couple of months. But yeah, I highly recommend checking those out. It gives a little bit more detailed explanation to that. In the future, I'm going to be talking about the fall and original sin and how that plays a role in the penalty of death and how sin, the wages of sin being death. You can also get a sneak peek at how those videos are going to be if you visit our website at www.nechristianapologetics.com. If you're on YouTube, thanks for watching, and please consider subscribing and hitting the like button. It helps us out. Also, please share this content with your friends and family, and tune back in next week for our next Theology Thursday. Thank you, and God bless.